I'm Lippy.
And I'm Grumpy. Together, we're Lippy and Grumpy Do Podcasting.
In this episode, Murray Walker, Shrek hats, the spring equinox, waving at drivers, and an annoying smoke detector.
Now, Lippy, I want to start with the passing of Murray Walker. Very sad. However, he did live to 97, and
Wow.
I would say not one life, but two lives. So he fought in the Second World War. He had a very successful career in marketing and advertising, and then he became a commentator. So what he would do is, at the end of the working week, he'd pack the car up with his wife, and they'd drive overnight up north to the middle of nowhere, where he would commentate on a motorbike trials. And somehow or other from that, he got his first commentating gig for the BBC in 1949.
Oh my
And
God.
was there until really not that long ago. And I've never seen as much love for somebody that's passed in Facebook as I have for Murray Walker over the last few days. Absolutely astonishing. I mean, the man was an inspiration
Massively.
to many people. For people like me that grew up with motorsport in the 70s and 80s, he was the voice of motorsport. I don't think there was any sort of motorsport he didn't commentate on. He's an absolute legend. He did have the ability of saying something and then it not being right. which were known as Murrayisms, and he is quoted as saying, "I don't make mistakes, I make prophecies which are immediately proved wrong."
Sounds like me.
Yeah, it is a bit. And there's many examples of this. I'm not going to go into them, but I will put a picture up on their website of it. But the one that tickled me a bit was the one that went, "I'm ready to stop my Startwatch," where clearly he's got a couple of words muddled
Mixed
up.
around.
Thinking about it, though, why is it a stopwatch?
Because you stop the time.
I suppose so, but you've got to start a stopwatch, which sounds as equally as
You do,
bonkers. It's a very odd term, and I don't think, well, obviously it's the wrong words, or the right words in the wrong places, so Walker would say.
A timer's better, I think, rather than a stopwatch.
Yes, I think you're correct, yes. "I'm ready to stop my timer" would have worked perfectly. So there was only one word a bit wonky there.
Yeah.
But anyway, very sad day on Saturday, hearing of his passing. Nevertheless, what a life led. Inspiration to us all.
Massive.
I was pleased to see that Davros got back in touch after a week off.
Yes, he is alive and well.
He is alive, yes.
Just busy.
Busy. Something to do with threat of moles or something. I didn't quite follow that, but obviously he's been very busy. Had a bit of a poke at me about my pronunciation of Fraser. Davros then goes on to talk about his parents' fig plant, which Davros bought for them many years ago. They had to move it to do some work on their conservatory, and the plant is in a pot, so he's done the sensible thing to try and contain the roots and the growth. However, the fig plant had other ideas, and it's burrowed through the bottom of the pot, through the drainage hole, 5 foot down.
That's ridiculous.
Which is crazy, and I'm now rethinking what I've set up to try and contain the roots of the allotment.
Yeah.
Because there were gaps, and it will work its way through it.
Maybe you have to do a potted fig rather than an actual...
Well, that doesn't seem to be enough. It works its way through a pot. I don't think...
What is impressive is that it didn't break the pot. It just, made a little hole for itself to obviously worm its way through.
Yes, very good at cohabitating with whatever the surroundings are. But I'm looking forward to lots of figs in a few years' time, I have to say.
Can you make fig rolls? Because I like a fig roll, but I don't really like a fig.
They're not going to last that long. It's a bit like the peas in your mother. With loads of peas, and very few of them actually end up being cooked because they're eaten raw, and none of them end up in the freezer. So, no chance with the figs whatsoever. We've also heard from Orange Marshal 2. I was presented with a photograph of his foot in a boot. And due to a gravity-related incident involving stairs, he has a cracked bone in it.
Oh, no.
Yes. So, didn't pry, but that's going to be sore for a while, I'm afraid.
A cracked bone, I feel like it's one of the worst.
Yeah, because it's... Oh, no. I can't think about it. It makes me faint.
You're a bit squeamish.
Just a bit. And the Screaming Tomato got in touch, and I worked with the Screaming Tomato on 3 occasions, I think, over the years. But he worked on his own, well, obviously not on his own, with other people at Harrods. And he tells me apparently they had their own fire brigade at the time. They possibly still do. With their own water supply, which is a well sunk beneath the store.
To be honest, that doesn't actually surprise me as much as you would expect it to. Because I feel like if Harrods was on fire, that is a lot of money that is going to get burnt. Like, they want to deal with that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things you read and you go, oh, and you went, oh, no, actually, no, it's not a surprise at all.
No. Harrods has everything, so why wouldn't it have a fire brigade?
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Quite frankly. Also, apparently, they have their own security team. Quite scary. And whilst I was spending a bit of time rummaging through Twitter, I came across a tweet from North Ormesby Primary Academy, and apparently Year 6 had asked Mrs Dowie, would you make us a Shrek beanie, please? And Miss Dowie said, when we get out of lockdown, I'll make the whole of Year 6 a Shrek beanie. And then, of course, we get the message, children will return to school on the 8th of March. To her credit, Mrs Dowie has knitted Shrek hats for the entire class, and they are awesome. Absolutely awesome. I'll put a picture of it up on our website.
That is
well
impressive.
Done, Mrs Dowie. That is some amount of knitting.
There wasn't that amount of time between when it was announced that schools were going back and then the 8th of March. It was like the 2 weeks before.
I assume she had a bit of a head start, so she may have started around beginning of the year.
Yeah. To be honest, if you said something like that and you knew you were going to keep it, you would probably start as soon as you said it, just
absolutely.
to keep ahead of it.
Yes, it would be interesting to know when she started.
Yeah, definitely.
But I thought that was great, and there's a few other pictures also of various of her colleagues wearing the hats. So maybe we get in touch, see if we can blag a couple.
Oh yeah, I'd love a Shrek hat.
Yeah, that would be very good, wouldn't it?
I'm not sure Chris would be doing for us, but I'd wear it everywhere.
Wow, so would I.
Go out together when we're allowed in our Shrek hats.
I had a bit of excitement at the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Having had the Mazda window out and greased and had the switch explode into little bits and put it back together, put the window back in, works a treat.
Oh.
Really pleased. Up and down.
That is, yeah. Satisfying.
Like it just came out of the factory. So.
Well, there's a first time for everything, isn't there? So.
Well, there is, but I've got the other side to do now.
You putting something together and it working first time is a treat.
Well, that has happened on occasions. I had my Volvo engine in pieces a few years ago, just before Christmas. And
again, great time to do that.
Well, I was off. That was the thing.
Okay, yeah.
And there was a few dry days. It wasn't warm, but it was dry enough to strip it all down and get it back together again. And I think I got it running about an hour before the rain started.
That is impressive.
And it started first time, which impressed me. But they're very well made cars, so that's not a surprise. Anyway, that's enough about cars for the time being.
Woo.
You'll be pleased to know.
Thanks.
So, you wanted to talk about the spring equinox.
I did. Because I don't know why. Some things like that, mythology... I know it's not mythology, it's real, but I feel like spring equinox has a lot of mythological... Mythological.
I'm not even sure that's right, to be honest.
To say.
Well, you chose the topic.
Oh, God, let's pretend I didn't. Joking. Anyway, there's a lot of mythological things around it. So I was scrolling through and reading about the spring equinox. For people that don't know what that is, it's the first day of spring, and it's the longest day of the... Well, it's not the longest, is it? Because it's equal daylight and night time is the kind of...
Yeah, I believe it's when the sun passes the equator.
Yeah.
Which is on its way heading north, so it's heading to longer days and shorter nights.
Yes, exactly, which is the best news anyway, because it's light now and it's been great light until almost 6:30. I love it. It's making me think of summer. Anyway, so I had a little look online, I was reading through and I found an article that was 11 things you didn't know about spring equinox. And one, which I thought was really cool, I don't know why. But when it's the equinox, the moon, when it's the first full moon, is called a worm moon.
Worm moon?
Yeah, like the little
wiggly
animal
thing in the ground.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the reason for this is a bit weird. Like, I don't understand why it's the moon that's called the worm moon. But it's because all of the worms are starting to come out of the ground after we've had a wet winter, and it's starting to get warmer and the ground's all soft, so the worms start coming up. It's called a worm moon, which I thought was awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
Other thing, I'm not going to go through all 11 because some of them are a little bit boring, but this one, which I think we need to try and record, and then we'll pop it on our Instagram, because if it doesn't work, it would be quite funny. Although it's just messy if it doesn't work. But apparently, during the spring equinox, you are able to stand an egg on its bottom and it will stay upright and it won't fall over, because of the magnetic forces from where the Earth is moving should keep the egg upright.
So is that a fresh egg rather than a hard-boiled egg?
Yes, a fresh egg.
Well, that would be worth a try.
Definitely give it a go. Also, it's not a fresh egg, it's a raw egg, isn't it?
Yes.
Most eggs are fresh. But anyway, I did a bit more reading on that, and apparently it's a bit rubbish. And that you could, depending on the type of egg, you could do that any time of the year. But that's not fun. We want it to be because of magnets and stuff. So we'll give that a go.
Just to remind the listeners, if you're listening on release day, which is a Friday, it's tomorrow, Saturday the 20th. If you're listening after Saturday, you've missed it.
Oh, yeah, so no egg fun.
No egg fun, but we will try.
We'll definitely give it
maybe
a go.
We'll do it over Zoom so we can record it.
Yes, let's do that. We might have to do mobile phone zooming, though, to make it easier.
Do we need to be very precise? Because it's saying here it's 9:37.
Well, on the article I read, it just said on the day of spring equinox.
I think we should probably go for 9:37.
In the morning?
Yes.
Okay. I'll have to get up so early, though.
Well, I've got to get up early anyway because I've got a vaccine jab booked for later that morning. So It will be a balance your egg and run.
Oh, I feel like a vaccine on the spring equinox could lead to turning into a zombie.
Oh, or superpowers.
Or superpowers. Yes, let's do superpowers. That's more fun.
Yeah, I think superpowers.
Another point which will be, I think everybody should embrace this one thing that is an ancient Roman tradition of spring equinox, is to have, I can't pronounce what they call it, but it's celebrating the god of wine.
Oh, yes.
So why don't we do that? That shouldn't have been a Roman tradition. That should have originated from the Romans, and we should still be doing that. I would definitely suggest celebrating the god of wine on Saturday. I'm not going to go into detail about what the Romans actually did because it is a bit crude, but a lot of wine.
There are several things you can say about the Romans. Obviously, straight roads. They were quite snappy dressers, some of them, and they did like a party.
They did like a party. And they had a god of wine.
Yeah, that's astonishing,
that's
isn't it?
amazing. They did like grapes as well, didn't they?
Well, that's where wine comes from, so
yeah.
It's sort of like raw wine, if you like.
Yeah, so they were kind of my main fun ones that I read in the article that I really enjoyed and I thought I should share because they just make spring equinox a bit more interesting, I thought.
It does indeed. And if you dig around in history a bit, actually not very far, you'll find many, many temples that previous civilizations have put up, which are calendars. There was one that was on a Brian Cox programme, and I looked for it, but I couldn't find it. And it was almost like lots of different steps in this massive great stone. It wasn't really a building, really. It's a little bit like Stonehenge. It's a monument. And on certain days, the sun dropped into one of these slots so they could tell where they were in the year.
That's
absolutely
awesome.
Incredible. And there's a number of them around the world. And it's got a name which, again, is really difficult to pronounce, but it's sort of a combination of, well, I suppose it's astrology, really, or astrophysics and archaeology.
Yeah.
But what I've always loved the stars, and I think if you go camping a lot, which we have, you get a you like staying out at night and looking up at the sky, and particularly last year where it's been, the air has just been so cleaner, so the view has been much better. But I think if you go back in history, it was such an important part of those civilizations that it's great to see what was formed around it, if you see what I mean. So the way they looked at the sky, and they obviously told stories about the constellations and who they represented, and that's come down through history, which is great. But the way it brought civilizations together with calendars and artifacts like that, I think it's brilliant. It's a brilliant subject to look into.
Definitely. There's a temple in Mexico that during the spring solstice, when the sun hits the right point, it creates a shadow of a serpent on the ground.
Oh, really? Didn't know that. So there's lots and lots of those.
Yeah.
And they probably would gather a bit like we gather at Stonehenge for the summer solstice, in the same way, but hundreds and hundreds of years ago it would have been an annual gathering. But I suppose if you didn't have a calendar, how would you know it was coming?
The air? I don't know.
Well, you know it's going to be on this day, but how do you know it's going to be tomorrow unless you've got a calendar, something that tells you it's tomorrow? Otherwise, do you leave somebody there all the way through the summer who shouts as soon as he sees the serpent?
Possibly.
We need answers.
God, that's a good question though, isn't it? Maybe they just visit the temple every day and wait.
Possibly.
Yeah.
That's not very efficient though.
Well, what was there really to do in those days?
Well, you had to go and find food. That's one thing. But actually, one of the most remarkable things we've seen lately in the sky has been one of the Elon Musk rockets going up. We watched it going up on the television, and it was deploying the Starlink satellites, which is a very controversial subject with astronomers because it potentially could block out looking at the night, the stars beyond them. But we saw the payload had split from the rocket at this point. It was going in orbit, and it's firing out little satellites. And because of where the sun was and the position of the payloads, you could see them. It was bright as day. It was a brilliant thing to watch.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
It just
really,
looked like
really
it was
cool.
having little babies.
That's exactly what it looked like. Yeah, just spitting out little baby satellites. It was astonishing, and that's something that you can still see, I think, quite frequently. I think the idea is that they'll end up in a geostationary orbit, so they're not going around all the time. Otherwise, stuff doesn't really work. But the other object, of course, you can see is the space station.
Yes.
Blocks, which we have seen many times. And I always try and go and stand out in the garden and watch it going over as an amazing feat of
and
human
try
engineering.
And drag everybody else out with you.
I do try and do that. It has been fading of late, I have to say. There's less interest in it.
Yeah, if it's at a decent time, I'll go out. But obviously I haven't even had to say no the last couple of months because I haven't had to be there.
Well, last year.
Last
really.
year, yeah.
Yeah. And when you turned up for camping, the rain appeared, so there was no...
Yeah, that
no
tends to
watching
happen every year. I pick the weekend that it rains.
Yeah, we're not telling you when we're going this year.
I can see, actually, it's not on the joint calendar.
We haven't decided, to be honest, yet.
It's hard to
all
pick,
a bit up in the air. It is a bit hard to pick. Now, I had a topic I'd like to discuss, which is a lot less serious than the one you brought up, which is waving at other road users.
Yes.
Now, I find we've got a classic Mini, and all Mini owners wave at other Mini owners. It is the law. If you don't do it, somebody comes and takes your car away. End of story. That's it. Job done. So it's very hard when you get into a vehicle that's similar to others, like camper van, for example.
Yes.
I try and wave at other camper vans. Not always possible. And because ours is left-hand drive, sometimes people are a bit confused because they see waving going on and they see there's no driver.
Yeah.
Which is slightly odd. But some people don't, and I don't understand why.
Yes, Chris likes to wave at other Mazda drivers.
Indeed.
Even though his Mazda is brand new, basically. I've never understood it. Why are you waving at people in the same car as you?
Because it's a tribe.
I guess.
That's why.
When it's a more iconic car like a Mazda MX-5 or an old school classic Mini, it is more of a tribe thing than like, I'm going to wave to other people in an Audi A3.
Well, that is true. I do wave at other people in old Volvos because it's...
Do you? Oh, no, that's weird.
That car's now coming up for 22 years old, so...
Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's a classic car or
it is.
Iconic... Well, I guess it is, but... It is. I don't know about that one.
Whether or not you think it, there's not very many on the road, so when you see another one, you wave at it. Now,
do you get many waves back?
Oh, yeah, every time.
What, for the Volvo?
Yeah. Well, the problem is when I wave, because my coordination's not very good, the steering arm goes as well.
So you crash into them mildly at the same time.
Swerve across both sides of the road before finally hitting them. But I had an interesting experience when Charlotte was she has still got a horse trailer, but she had the horse trailer. She couldn't actually use it because she had to take another driving licence. Mm. And so in between her doing some lessons and then applying for the test, I would drive in either, to begin with my car and then when she got the Shogun. And when we were coming back from somewhere or other, it was Billingshurst way, I decided I was going to start waving at the people with horse boxes coming the other way, which I did, and nobody waved back.
Are you surprised?
Yeah, well, initially it was a bit like what we were talking about earlier. So, yes, initially you go, and then you go, actually, no, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, if you really think about the equine society, I don't think they're car wavers.
I don't think they are. I mean, I can understand not waving at me in the Volvo, but not waving at the muddy Shogun with more mud than bodywork. But eventually, after, the trip's about 15 miles, I did get somebody to wave. Oh. But there was a look on their face that said, I'm waving because I think
I know who they are. Yeah.
But I don't recognise you. But in case I do know you, I'm going to wave back.
I've done that so many times. And you look at someone waving and you're like, I'm going to wave, but I don't really know who you are or why you're waving at me.
Yes, I've had that many times on a railway platform or concourse, and you're sitting there looking. I mean, particularly if you're reading something with reading glasses on, and look up, and the whole world is blurry, and somebody's waving at you, and you just assume it's you, and you wave back, and clearly it's not. That's
I have quite
embarrassing.
A visible. I wouldn't say visible. That's not the right word, but my car is terracotta. I like to say it's like a burnt orange. It's
brown.
It's more red than brown, though.
It's brown.
It's like a burnt orangey, reddy colour. Anyway, so a lot of people know my car, and it's quite easy to spot because it's obviously such a strange colour, and nobody else around these parts seems to have a car that colour. So whenever I was allowed to come home, obviously not at the moment, or last summer when we were allowed to do a bit more things, people would always wave at me because they knew exactly who I was. But I'm so bad at recognising people in cars that I'd always have one of my friends who still lives there. She always used to text me whenever I came back being like, oh, I saw you and I waved, but you didn't wave back. Or, oh, you waved, but you looked very confused. Basically every trip home, because I cannot reckon. I'm too focused, I think. I'm easily distracted, so when I drive I have to focus, and I think I just kind of don't even realise people are waving at me or trying to interact with me whilst driving.
That's very good to hear. I've got something bleeping here. I can keep hearing it. It might be a smoke alarm. I'm just going to go and try and find it. Okay. Yeah, it was the one right outside the office door. It was fine 30 minutes ago, and it's just decided to start beeping.
I didn't hear it. Oh, that
it's
was
still
loud.
Going.
I heard it that time.
How could it beep with the battery out?
That's the whole point, isn't it? They're meant to be indestructible. Ours is so sensitive. I can't even have the door open when I'm cooking because it sets it off. Yeah, which I guess is a good thing, but.
It is and it isn't. Well, it isn't for two reasons. One is that if you hear it and you think it's just cooking, you ignore it. And secondly, it runs the battery down every time it goes off.
Our house is quite small, so I think if it was on fire whilst one of us was cooking, we'd probably be very aware.
Yes, I would have thought so.
I'd hope one of us would notice.
We had an incident a few years ago when wife of Grumpy and I were at Wayfest. We got a call from Charlotte, I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning,
oh God,
to say the smoke alarm was going off.
I remember.
So instantly you think there's a fire, and it wasn't. There was no sign of a fire, but it was one of these that's sealed, so you can't change the battery. So you're forced into changing the whole unit.
You have to buy a new, yeah.
It's a very good idea on paper.
Mm.
The problem is, though, you can't shut it up.
No.
So in the end, she put it in a bowl of water, try and fuse it out, and then took it out, and it's still going, and it's even more angry than it was before. So she had to leave it. The bowl of water was the only way to stop it.
I think I remember this because I went home to see her whilst you guys were away, and I just walked into the kitchen and was like, why is there a smoke alarm in water? And she explained.
But I had to attack it with a hammer when I got home. There was no way of getting the battery out any other way, which I just seem a bit ill thought out, let's put it that way.
We've digressed.
Yes, we have digressed somewhat.
I was about to go into a further digression there. So.
Oh, go on then. No, go.
I was going to
go
say, we've got to start checking all of our smoke alarms and all of our alarms before we can rent the house out and add all, like, safety features. You have to have those little plastic spiky things by any blind so that when the blind's up, the string can be wrapped around it.
Oh, so you don't... Yes. Yeah, I understand that.
So we've got to start doing all of those fun things now that we might have found a house.
Well,
who knows?
Let's not get too excited.
I say that I won't get excited and that I won't tell anyone, so that if it falls through again, which is likely because we've been very unlucky, that I won't have to tell anyone it's fallen through. But I've told everyone. I've sent it to everyone.
You have now.
I'm super excited, and we're seeing it on Friday. So you never know. This time next week.
Well, we look forward to hearing
either a massive rant on next week or some hopeful,
well, it is possible
positive news
that you lost the other ones because this is the right house.
Yeah.
And I particularly like the fact it's got AstroTurf in the back.
Oh, us too. We're so bad at mowing the lawn. And my hay fever's so bad that no grass is literally the solution for us. But it's not so great for a dog because I don't think it's good for them to wee on.
Well, you could have a little area. You could have a little run for the dog, which is grass. And
train it to wee there.
Yeah, some friends of ours have that.
I might just try and train it to wee in the toilet, you know.
So in the middle of this AstroTurf, are you going to sink a golf hole?
No.
Why not?
Well,
it's
actually,
perfect.
Chris does play golf sometimes, so maybe.
You could have a whole crazy golf setup in there.
A crazy golf, yes, I would do that. I would do that and then have it so that you can put the AstroTurf back on top. So when you walk around like normal, it's just AstroTurf, but then you can pull it up and there's a crazy golf course underneath. That would be so cool. I'm so doing that if we get this house. We both absolutely love crazy golf as well. Always date night is crazy golf.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to that, and I think this might be the one.
Oh, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
So we have digressed a little bit from waving at other cars.
Massively.
But I think we probably have covered that. But if you have any waving at cars stories, then please let us know. We'll be very, very pleased to receive them. And if they're suitable for listening, then read them out. And if they're a bit naughty, then we'll read them and have a good chuckle ourselves.
Yes.
So have you got a fun fact for this week?
I'm a top tipper, aren't I? Rather than a
you
fun
are,
factor.
yes. Do you know, it's not, well, actually, what's happened is the end of last week, I came across a technical problem I didn't think I could solve.
Oh, no.
And I have come up with a solution that is the best technical workaround since 1985. So it has been a monumental day of feeling very smug and trying to get people to bask in my magnificence. That has failed. Nobody's impressed, but I am very impressed. So, my brain is a little... Is yours a tip?
No, is that a tip? That technical workaround, could it be a tip?
No, not at all. No, it's far too nerdy for this podcast.
Oh.
You complain about when I talk about cars. If I start talking about computers...
Oh, my God.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. You can host on your own.
Well, I have had offers. No, not really. So, have you got a top tip then, Lippy?
I do, and it is a Lippy brain top
Fantastic.
tip. So
these are the best.
These are the best. Again, it may not be useful, but it'll make you laugh. So anyway, my top tip. So if there is something you would like or that you want that your partner to get you, or a sister or whatever, someone that you live, it needs to be someone you live with, really. And if there's something you really, really want, this is what to do. Sit close to their phone. If it has to be a smartphone, to be honest. Smartphone or a tablet, and just constantly repeat the thing you want into the phone. And then they'll start getting adverts for it.
Oh, this is a conspiracy theory, isn't it?
I mean, it is and it isn't. The other way you can do it is if you can unlock their phone, Google it once, clear the search history, but don't clear the cookies, and then it will start coming up as an ad.
That is very true. I'm not convinced about the
No, it happens. Honestly, Chris and I'll be having conversations, and he will have searched something on his phone, and then I'll go onto my Instagram and there'll be an advert for it.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think that's something to do with IP addresses.
Probably.
Because I have seen that before. I've experienced that before. Not very often, it has to be said. But I believe it's all stopping. The sort of targeted adverts, I think Google is stopping. I read something recently. I'll dig into that a little bit more. But
I enjoy making Chris have the adverts of the things that I want.
Yes. Well, I think you need to do an experiment rather than hearsay.
Well, I did watch a video of a couple that did an experiment that didn't have any kids, or didn't have any pets, and they spent the day talking about dogs and dog food and needing to go to the shop for dog foods, and they started getting adverts for dogs and dog food.
Interesting.
But I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a go, you know. I'll tell you what, I'll do it on Chris's phone, and I'll see if he mentions he's getting lots of adverts for something. I'll have to have a think about what, though. Yes,
it'd be interesting. I mean, wife of Grumpy is convinced that all of the conversations that go on in the kitchen where we've got an Alexa end up as adverts on her phone. Utterly, utterly convinced. Until I pointed out that
they're not linked.
The account is mine. It's not.
Yeah, there's no way that would end up on.
All. The only way would be if it's some sort of matching on IP address. It's the only way. I think there's a little bit of a conspiracy theory with this, to be honest. But let's do an experiment.
I'm going to do it. I need a thing, though. What thing should I say I want that wouldn't already be on the phone?
How about a 10-ton bench press, which is used for pushing bearings and bushes out of car components?
A 10-ton
bench press. Yes.
Let's do it. I'll review next week.
Because there's no way either of you would ever look for that. No. Unless, of course, you were thinking of buying one for my birthday, which is coming up soon.
Not before my birthday, though, so...
No, but I thought I'd get in quick. So if you're looking for a present, a 10-ton bench press, absolutely perfect. Thank you very much.
10-ton bench press. I'm really struggling to say that without really thinking about it.
Yeah, 10-ton bench press.
All right. I'll let you know the outcome next week then.
Well, that's good. So that'll be a good bit of investigative journalism. So I have a fun fact.
Ooh, go on.
It's connected to a film we watched recently called Eurovision with Will Ferrell in it.
I love that film. I literally watched it the other day here.
Yeah, it was very, very funny. Very funny film. And in it, there was a couple of scenes where they're talking to the elves on the mountainside.
Yes.
So apparently Iceland, which is where the film's set, has an elf whisperer who inspects construction sites before anything gets built to make sure no elves are hanging around.
No.
Oh, yes.
That's so cool.
That is cool, isn't it?
Do they believe that strongly in elves? That they have someone to double check? That must mean the majority of the country believe in elves for that to be a thing.
Iceland's a very unusual place, I think. It's one that I feel I quite like.
I would like to live there. I feel like it's very easygoing.
Well, yes, although they have some crazy motorsport ideas. Ooh. I've seen some of them where they take a sort of a buggy type thing with these massive wheels on it and then try and drive up a vertical cliff.
Interesting.
Yes, their attitude to risk is slightly above ours, I think. And yes, and yet they have an elf inspector. So what a great place to live, quite frankly.
Sounds perfect.
It does. Their names are pretty much unpronounceable, though.
That is true.
So we'll put a link to that on our website. There's an article on Iceland Naturally, which has got nothing to do with the shop and everything to do with the country. That's it for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening.
You can help spread Lippy and Grumpy's view on life by leaving a review on your favourite podcast platform.
If you're not sure how to leave a review, or if you download from Spotify, there's some help at lippyandgrumpy.uk/review.
And if you would like to get in touch, email podcast@lippyandgrumpy.uk.
So it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.
Goodbye.